Hi. Yeah, so,
Oh my God, your Love and Rockets shirt.
oh, yes.
I mean, honestly, Huesera was like the main, like the first inspiration was that comic.
Wait, you're kidding me. I
I'm
love that
kidding,
comic.
yeah, like
It's
Maggie and Hopi, like they're like very much Valeria and Octavia were inspired in those characters. Like, I can't believe you're wearing that shirt. That's fucking amazing.
I must have been picking up on the vibes. It was definitely, yeah, making me think of what I love about that comic. Oh, and so, yeah, speaking of, I loved Huesera. I was crazy about it. I'm so excited to talk to you about it. Thank you for sitting down with me.
Of course, of course. Like, thanks so much for the space.
So, my first question was just about the title. I know it comes from a folktale that tells the story of a bone collector who assembles a wolf skeleton, comes to life, transforms into a woman. Can either of you remember the first time you heard or read this story and what its effect was on you?
Yes, I actually, it was not when I was a little girl that I heard this legend. It's not really as known as like La Llorona, for example. I was going through the mourning process of my mother, and I got a book from a friend called Women Who Run with Wolves.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yes, it's a great book by Clarissa Pincola. She's a psychoanalyst, and she analyzes this folk tale, and she really speaks about like finding pieces of yourself, like trying to put you back together through difficult process of. I mean, therapy can be done in many different ways, you know. Kind of speaks of like doing that process that it's like looking at yourself in the mirror and trying to understand your shadows and all that, and it really stayed with me. I used to play in some bands, and some of like the songs that I wrote were inspiring that folk tale, and like I feel like it stayed with me, and then little by little it got cooked into what today is Huesera. It's crazy.
Oh, what about you, Natalia? Do you remember the first time that you heard it?
The legend, like
Okay, I don't know the legend until I. It's not too popular in Mexico like like La Llorona, but for me, the un huesero like is something like near to a chiropractic. Like it's a man who put your bones in the correct place for you. For him, for example, if you have an issue with a pain issue in your body,
Mhm.
whatever pain you have, you can go with a huesero that put your bones. And
Oh,
the myth sets are like the popular thing is that you are going to be healthy if you are like in the correct place. And for me, it makes a lot of sense because this issue, this thing that the character are seeing, makes like she is trying to put the things in the correct space of herself.
I didn't think of that at all. I really like that interpretation.
yeah,
Oh,
as well, like yeah.
The both. So
yes. I was also so curious as to how the spiders came into play as a visual motif, because I know in the folktale it's usually a wolf. So I'd love to hear more about how the monster was sort of conceived of and created.
Yes, it was really through the writing process. I'm a very, I don't know if that's the word, but like invested writer. Like we rewrite a lot. And then the entity really transformed throughout the rewrites. And it was basically because we were really focused on making it work specifically for Valeria and not the other way. Like we didn't want it, like the Huesera to be on the top. I mean, I guess like priority, like the priority was always Valeria. So we really built the entity throughout Valeria's personality and her life, and it's kind of like a reflection of her and like her work and everything she does. So little by little we understood that the two rules were like the broken female bodies, like fractured bones, and also the spiderish aspects, and that really was inspired. Like it really came from, I really love this sculpture artist from France, Louise Bourgeois, that she makes these huge spiders. They were
Yeah.
for a while, and she compares the figure of the spider a lot with motherhood. She has a very like complex and deep reflection on motherhood and her own maternity and her relationship with her mom, and compares like figure of the spider like as a place that looks like a home but also a jail, and that really kind of like that state, you know, like I wanted to keep like the whole, like Valeria, she's a character that she weaves, she's a weaver in her work, you know, like the kind of furniture she makes, and I feel like it really speaks about like building your own home, but also like having aspects of like of being a predator with it as well, you know. It's like this violent but then at the same time caring aspect that has a lot to do with motherhood.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially with the ways that you show like Valeria's sort of queer community seeming like having this like aggressive appearance or whatever, but being very like welcoming and supportive to her, in contrast to like this like cold and punishing like domesticity that she's found herself in. That's really cool. I love that. My computer fell down.
Don't worry.
Not too excited. I'd love to also to hear more about your other influences in this film, because it comes in such a long line of films about like pregnancy and motherhood and gender roles. What were some of the other inspirations that you took in the making of this film?
So Love and Rockets was a big one. We actually had a time, my co-writer and me, of reading a lot of essays. Like, for example, we read, actually there's this writer, Sarah Ahmed. She's British, and she has this book called, she has a blog called Feminist Killjoy. And like a whole concept of being uncomfortable, you know, and going out and saying all the things your family doesn't want to hear. And like King Kong theory too, like Virgin Despente's essay. So, and also like horror analysis books, like the Men, Women, and Chainsaws book. We really did a lot of investigation of like the symbolic aspects of gender roles in horror. And I feel like that gave us like a very strong point of view, I guess, of what we wanted to do with Huesera. Like, how do we break this like kind of portrayal of like very inhuman portrayal of women, that is either like you're a good woman and very protective, caring mom, and or like you're a terrible woman that kills their kids. You know, it's like trying to say like there's so much grace in the middle of like how to be or not to be a mother. And so I feel like, and apart from a lot of films, of course, like we had a film club, like part of the cast and crew. Like we were watching films every week, and of course we watched Jacob's Ladder and Don't Look Now, Possession. I really wanted to take the crew and cast out of the box of what they think horror was, because many of them was the first horror film to do. And there's like many concepts of what horror is supposed to be, when there's actually so many ways of doing horror. And I feel like that was very cool to do.
Yeah. What about you, Natalia? What were some of the performances that inspired your work with Valeria?
I'm thinking in Toni Collette, because she's an actress with a special range.
Yes.
I love it, because she can do drama, comedy, and horror. And she always are like in the middle of the like in the realism or in the farsa, like in the farsic. So I think that for horror is like the point. But I thinking in Babadook too, because this sense of the things that she are like supporting and not saying. And I'm thinking about we have to talk about Kevin, that is more like in a thriller mood. I was like in the cliche that, I don't know, it's my first horror movie, so I think that my conception of the horror was like very basic. So when we start to construct the character of Valeria, I don't know, it's the tone of the thing is more related about the things that she are like thinking and feeling, more than the effect that we wanted to make in the audience. So yeah, I think that there were my inspirations for
a film that we talked a lot about was The Hours.
The Hours.
Toni Collette is there, and that's something that we really,
and it's not horror, but it has a lot of the issues in the fame female issues that we wanted to explore. So I think that is an important reference for us.
Yeah, I love that as a reference. The sound design reminded me a lot of We Need to Talk About Kevin too. What I was thinking about that movie while I was watching it.
Lynne Ramsay has like, I mean, she's a master of sound. I mean, she's a complete master, but her sound work is like, it was a huge inspiration for the film as well.
Yeah. So the website that I write for is called Horror Obsessive. So I'm always curious to know, like, why horror? What do you love about the genre?
It's something that is very, I don't know if that's the word, but like innate to me. Like I used to write since I was very little, and everything I tend to be like that. That's the way I express. I feel like I found horror, and I was like, oh, this is where I feel like I am myself. Yeah. And I think it has to do with the fact that I like to find like symbolic connection side of things, you know, or like the reality. And then some of those I kind of find them like a little bit supernatural. I like, you know, I feel like that's the way that I love to see my reality, or like what the world that surrounds me. And there's something that horror gives you that is amazing, that is like through a quick image or sound, you can say something very complex, like these essays that I was talking, like maybe it takes a whole book to express something that you can really express emotionally in 2 minutes in a scene, you know, and I really love that. I feel like it holds a lot of power, and I feel like there's a lot that hasn't been explored yet. And like in Latin America, there's like a big thing going on with like female horror writers, for example, that I feel like they're doing crazy things that I've never read before. And I feel like, oh my God, there's still so much to do in the horror space, you know, and I'm very excited for it.
Me too.
Yeah, in the performance, I think that we are like starting to look at big possibility of express a different tone, like in the cinema, like the Mexican cinema is very like careful with some aspects, like technical aspects, and like with, I don't know, naturality of the act of the performance. And the horror make us to look at another possibility, and it's like huge and it's very fun, and I think that is like liberator too. So I'm very excited too.
Well, I know you have to go in just a second, but before you go, can you tell me what you both have coming up next? What projects you're working on?
Yes, you want to start? Okay. I'm actually about to film my next feature this year. We wrote that also with my co-writer, the same co-writer as Huesera. We've been working on it for several years as well. And that I think that we already won the funds, and now we're with a great production company from Mexico. And we already have a couple more projects there that I can't talk about yet. But I have a lot of work, and also like there's like La Hora Marcada, which is like the Mexican Twilight Zone reboot coming out soon in VIX Plus, and I directed and I wrote one of the episodes, and I love that, and I feel like it's gonna be very special because it's 9 directors from Latin America, all in the horror space, and I think it's gonna be a special TV series. I feel like people have to watch it.
Oh, I can't wait to check that out.
For me, I can share, like I'm gonna the movie of Fernando Frias is going to watch the light this year, so I'm very excited to see it and to share with you and with all the audience.
Do you know the title of the film?
Yeah,
in English?
it's no in English, no, but in Spanish is
Oh,
No voy a pedirle a nadie que me crea.
Okay.
No voy a pedirle a nadie que me crea.
I'm gonna ask anyone to believe me. It's something like that. But he's a great director. Yeah, he's a great director.
I'm really excited to see it. Well, thank you so much for talking to me. It was truly like a treat. I hope you have a great rest of your press day.
Thank you, Saskia. It was amazing to talk to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.